The situation in the Middle East is rapidly escalating as the United States and Israel continue their military campaign against Iran, triggering intense global reactions and political tensions between key allies. In a dramatic development that has captured international headlines, President Donald Trump sharply criticized the United Kingdom, openly questioning Prime Minister Keir Starmer's leadership and declaring that he is no Winston Churchill. The remarks came after the UK initially refused to allow American forces to use British-controlled bases for the first wave of strikes against Iran, creating friction between Washington and London at a critical moment in the conflict. Although the UK has since allowed the use of these bases, it has limited that permission strictly to defensive operations, signaling a cautious stance as the crisis deepens. At the same time, Britain has taken steps to strengthen security in the region. The British government confirmed it is deploying one of its most advanced warships, HMS Dragon, to Cyprus to bolster protection around RAF Akrotiri, a strategic airbase that has reportedly been targeted by Iranian drone activity. The deployment highlights growing concerns about the conflict spreading across the region, particularly as the Royal Navy currently has no major warships stationed in the Mediterranean, raising questions about Western military readiness and regional stability. Meanwhile, the humanitarian toll inside Iran continues to rise dramatically. According to the Iranian Red Crescent, at least 787 people have been killed since the United States and Israel launched coordinated strikes over the weekend. The rapidly increasing death toll and expanding military activity are intensifying fears that the conflict could spiral into a wider regional war involving multiple global powers. Back in Washington, President Trump's comments came during a White House meeting with the German Chancellor, where he praised Germany's support for the campaign against Iran while criticizing what he described as a lack of cooperation from the United Kingdom. Trump specifically referenced Diego Garcia, the strategic island in the Chagos archipelago that hosts a joint U.S.-UK military base. The president expressed frustration over British plans to transfer sovereignty of the island to Mauritius while leasing it back for military use, arguing that the decision complicated American military logistics and forced U.S. aircraft to travel significantly longer distances during operations. The tension highlights a growing strain in the U.S.-UK alliance, a relationship historically considered one of the strongest in global politics. Analysts say the disagreement over military strategy and base access has pushed the relationship between Trump and the British Prime Minister to one of its most difficult moments yet. Adding to the confusion surrounding the conflict are shifting explanations from the Trump administration about why the war began in the first place. President Trump claimed that intelligence suggested Iran was preparing to launch an attack against the United States, prompting him to act first. According to the president, striking Iran before it could strike American targets was necessary to protect U.S. interests and prevent a larger confrontation. In a surprising twist, Trump even suggested that he may have forced Israel's hand, implying that Washington accelerated the timeline of military action. However, other members of the administration have offered slightly different explanations. The U.S. Secretary of State previously told lawmakers that American officials knew Israel was planning to attack Iran and believed Iran would retaliate against U.S. targets, making a preemptive strike necessary as a defensive measure. These conflicting narratives have fueled intense debate in Washington and among international observers about the true motivations behind the military action. Congressional lawmakers are now demanding answers. Senior officials are scheduled to brief members of Congress about the conflict, and many lawmakers are expected to press the administration for clear evidence of the intelligence that allegedly showed Iran preparing to attack the United States. Several members of congressional intelligence committees have already stated that they have not yet seen the intelligence referenced by the president, further deepening skepticism and controversy. The political reaction within the United States is also deeply divided. Early polling suggests that only about 1 in 4 Americans currently support the military action against Iran, according to a recent Reuters Ipsos survey. Within the Republican Party itself, the issue has created an unusual split. Some supporters praise the president for taking decisive action against what they view as a dangerous regime, arguing that previous administrations were unwilling to confront Iran directly. Others within Trump's base, however, feel the decision contradicts his earlier promise to avoid foreign wars and regime change conflicts, raising fears that the United States could become entangled in another long and costly Middle Eastern war. The White House insists the mission will not turn into a prolonged conflict. Officials say the objective is clear: destroy Iran's ballistic missile capabilities, prevent the country from developing nuclear weapons, and eliminate threats to American interests. Vice President J.D. Vance has emphasized that the U.S. does not intend to remain involved for years, but many analysts and policymakers remain skeptical, questioning how long such objectives might actually take to achieve. Across the Atlantic, Trump's harsh criticism of the British Prime Minister has also sparked political shockwaves in London. Political observers say the president's comparison to Winston Churchill was not a spontaneous remark, but a deliberate message that reflects growing frustration inside the White House. While British officials may not be entirely surprised by Trump's confrontational style of diplomacy, the public nature of the criticism highlights the increasing strain between Washington and London. The tension did not begin with the Iran conflict. Recent disagreements over issues such as trade, Greenland, and the war in Ukraine had already created friction between the two governments. There was also a public dispute earlier in the year after Trump criticized Britain's military efforts in Afghanistan, prompting a strong response from the UK leadership. Now, the disagreement over Iran, particularly Britain's decision not to participate in offensive military action and to deny U.S. bombers access to Diego Garcia for strikes, has intensified those tensions further. As the war between the United States, Israel, and Iran continues to evolve, the world is watching closely. With rising casualties, uncertain military objectives, divided political support, and growing friction among Western allies, the conflict is quickly becoming one of the most complex and unpredictable geopolitical crises in recent years. And many questions remain unanswered, from the true intelligence behind the initial strikes to how long the United States intends to stay involved, leaving global leaders and citizens alike wondering what the next phase of this rapidly escalating conflict will bring.